All right. Well, man, I've been having some Wi-Fi issues lately. Well, everyone knows I pretty much always have Wi-Fi issues. Um, I live in a guest house in LA, and we have been using our landlord's Wi-Fi. Then we upgraded, I don't know, like 3 months ago, and we were supposed to have 200 MPS. I used to be really good with technology. And I've talked about this a million times. And then I started going to prison. And now, you know, I got out and people weren't using DOS anymore. They weren't using Windows 98. They were using whatever they're using now, iOS, the new operating systems that, I just didn't evolve with the rest of culture because I was locked up. And I guess MPS is how you quantify. It's a really easy acronym, and I don't know why I'm blanking on it, but it's pretty much how you quantify how fast your Wi-Fi speed is. So I had paid for 200 MPS, which is, I don't know, it's like low. It's, I think it goes like 200, 500, goes up to 940. And I'm sure there's other plans. This is just with the particular service that I use. And there's ways to test your MPS, and I tested mine, and it came in at 18 MPS. And I Googled that, and I went on one of those message boards where you could like be like, hey, is this good? And people just started like responding with the little like crying, laughing emojis. I was like, what? They're like, that's like dial up modem status. So I made an appointment and I'm upgrading to 940 MPS, which is cool. Means that I can basically download butt fucking conga line videos, bro chop porn in seconds instead of hours. It takes me, when I upload a video that's like 40 minutes, it takes 2.5 hours. I thought that was normal. And then I get on my Nokia phone and play Snake 2. I'm like, oh yeah, this is normal. This is what everyone's doing. But now I got to get with the times and I got to get better technology. So that's what I'm doing. And I had already, I've been uploading a lot of stuff. So I found a hard drive that has, I think I've talked about it. It has like hundreds of hours of footage. It has a bunch of photos, like thousands of photos, pretty much my entire life, because this is the stuff that Jeff had archived when we first started doing the documentary. So pretty much everything that I talk about, I have I have a lot of pictures of a lot of stuff that I talk about, a lot of videos, and I've been putting it up on Patreon, and people are happy about it. Um, and what else? Drug Stories for Truckers is officially coming out. We're just waiting for its release. It'll be on Spotify, iTunes. Donating all that to the Paul Project. I'll also be doing some raffles with Mickey Avalon and Sinister, giving away paintings, drawings, vinyls, all sorts of stuff. Because it's illegal in certain states to send Narcan. So now I have to have an attorney because we have to look over the legality of it. And we just started the process for getting everything with the Secretary of State through LegalZoom. There's expenses coming up. So to get the tax exempt status and to make sure that it's legal to send it to places and to use the mail, period. I mean, there's ways to get Narcan. I have 500 of your email addresses saved on that site. Once we send the 500, which I'm trying to, I just got to get it cleared by an attorney, and then we're going to send it. I'm doing some charity stuff. The Kindle version of my book is now going towards the Paul Project, and I just got accepted by Cameo, so I can be like, dude, I'll suck your dick for indica or sativa bud shakes. Palabra. You guys can just make me say whatever I want. Yeah, I'm Ryan. I'm a bitch. And shit like that. And you pay me, and it's $20. And any proceeds I get from that will go towards the Paul Project. If you're in the $100 tier, you get a personalized Skype, Zoom, phone call with me once a month, and you also get a free cameo, and you get a gift. We just sent out Sinister lithographs to those sponsor tiers, and now we're going to send exclusive UGG boots this month. So lots of reasons to check out Patreon, plus a lot more storylines, exclusive footage, shit like that. And I'm having a good time with it. And I appreciate you guys that have supported me because my life turned around. and I'd already recorded 2 story videos, and it's on this other hard drive. So now I have to redo them. I hate redoing stories. I've already done the story that I'm about to do. And then I did a China story, which is a VIP tier storyline for Patreon. I have to redo both of those right now, and that sucks. I got an offer today to be in a movie, which is pretty cool, to act in a movie. And they're going to make me juggle bowling pins. I'm playing a gay skinhead from Oakland. Like, comment, subscribe, patreon.com/Ryan Leone. Check out Cameo. I also fixed the link for the merchandise. That's not going towards charity. That is going towards Newport 100s. But Kindle version, the raffles we do, and drug stories for truckers, and the Cameo stuff is for that. And the paperbacks I use to send free books to prison. And I'm gonna I have an assistant now. I think I'm caught up on sending stuff. I know there's one sweatshirt, but somebody had commented. We got that. We got your address. If you sent it, I commented back. And I'll forward that on to the assistant. He'll send it to you, send you tracking as well. And that's about it. So where we're at in the storyline is this is the breakdown period. This is right before I went back to prison for the 3rd time. So just to kind of bring everybody back up to date where we're at. Basically, I was homeless. Yeah, I got out of prison for the 2nd time. This was in 2017. And I met Karina, my wife, and I got her pregnant probably within like a month of us dating. We were really, really bad alcoholics during that period. We both stopped drinking right around the time that we found out that she was pregnant. She stopped immediately. I probably stopped like a week or 2 later. I think about a week later. And then a bunch of stuff happened. I sold the rights to Wasting Talent to Santos, and then the documentary Idiot Savant went into production. We started talking about that. And during the course of the documentary going into production, me knowing that I was going back to prison for the 3rd time for my pimping and pandering case, being on federal probation, having a therapist that just, I'd tell her about how I'd punch my chick in the stomach and watch cum spew out of her nose like walrus tusks. And everyone's like, that's not what it's called. It's called a flying scorpion squat. Ugh. Well, I mean, I'm just joking. I've never done that. That's fucking weird. I mean, if you've done that, that's probably crystal meth related, and it's cool. I mean, it's not me. I'm a shooting heroin and watch Nick at Night in a motel kind of guy. Never been a tweaker. Well, I mean, I have. I mean, my saying I've never been a tweaker, I like shot meth for like 3 years and stuck shampoo bottles up my ass. I get weird on meth. Get paranoid and get hypersexual. Sometimes I get paranoid and sexual at the same time. Beat off while I'm looking through peepholes. Look like the Monopoly guy. Like, hey, what's up, man? Dumb, homie. Your bush looks like a hog, homeboy. Sorry, I haven't done that one for a long time. I wanted to. Oh, God, I always forget to put my shit on airplane mode. Okay, so in the last video, I've been talking about Paul. It sucks talking about him. I really miss him a lot. He was a great guy, and we had the same sense of humor, and he was a really talented guy. Great artist, great editor. He made a lot of really, really, really great content. I have all of it, and I might start releasing it. I might just start putting it on the channel. Not everything that's on his channel. But the reason that I talked about him so much in the last couple of videos is because he was part of the breakdown period. I had found out that Nico had a hole in his heart. We didn't know if he had Down syndrome. We didn't know if it was related to Karina being drunk, when he was conceived. We think, just to go back to when Nico was conceived, just because I want to talk about him, because it involved fucking my hot chick, wife, person. She's cool. She's a nice person. So the night that I think that Nico was conceived, we used to party in the salon that Karina worked at before she got fired. So we would get just straight hammered at this place. And we'd smoke cigarettes in there. We'd run around naked. We'd play games. She'd be like, "Oh my God, I dropped my cigarette. Butt fuck me." I'd be like, what if I quit smoking? And she's like, "Then just butt fuck me for free." I'm like, "Oh my God." Your stories fell off. And don't watch them, guys. Jeez. Don't have to attack me. Some people like it. For the 10 of you that still like me, hi. Hey. Talk about prison. Talk about how tough you were. I'm a bitch. I'm not a good convict. I'm a spoiled bitch. So we used to party at her salon, and I remember very specifically waking up at on 4th of July. 4th of July is when I think that Nico was conceived. So we woke up wasted. I don't think we might have been doing coke the night before. I want to say that we were, maybe. I don't know. Whatever the case, we were fighting bad, and we were at the salon, and we woke up naked upstairs in this little lounge, or just butt naked, and we heard all these people in there. Now, the salon wasn't open that day, so Karina's like, "Oh my God, there's people here. Do you think they know we butt fucked? Oh my God, what if there's a camera and they saw me bending over for the cigarette thing and they saw the whole thing?" I'm like, "So what? Who cares?" She's like, yeah, I don't care either. So there are these people in the salon. And, like I said, I mean, the place was supposed to be closed that day. So she's like, shh, be quiet. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like all like hungover because I think we were doing blow the night before. And I think we were drinking. I don't really remember. But I remember I woke up and I just started smoking a cigarette in this, like we're indoors at the salon. We're upstairs in this little, I guess it's like the best way to describe it would be like a staff lounge. And I'm just sitting there naked smoking a cigarette. And she's like going to investigate who these people were. And somebody that worked there, I guess their family was there from out of town and they were giving them a tour. This guy's like, okay, so, guy talk like that. Not saying if you work at a salon that you're gay, but this guy worked at a salon and he was super gay. He's like, yeah, this is, talks just like Korean. Yeah, this is where I work. And, it smells like cigarettes in here. Karina comes up, like, this really happened. She said that, and then she runs up and she's like, oh my God, what are you doing? Why are you smoking? And I'm just like naked. I'm like, oh, I don't know. So I put it out and we almost got busted. And it kind of blew our spot up. It freaked her out because we would like kind of sleep there when we didn't have anywhere else to sleep. We'd sleep up in the staff lounge and we get drunk, sometimes cocaine, anal sex, typical Wednesday night stuff. And Karina's like, we can't stay here. We got to go. So we ended up taking off and it kind of like ruined our place to stay. Now at the time, my parents had already gotten their restraining order on her. My parents had kicked me out. This is like when I was in my full-blown homeless stage. I've posted a lot of footage from this era on Patreon. I was like basically surviving by selling things out of my backpack. Legal things, of course. And so we had nowhere to go. She could stay at her parents' house, but she couldn't. Like something stuck in the middle of my teeth. She couldn't have me over there. So what happened is we ended up going to the Santa Barbara 4th of July parade on State Street, which is like the main street right there. We walked to a park. I remember we got Slurpees at 7-Eleven. We didn't even get Slurpees though. Like we didn't even put the Slurpee sauce. You don't say Slurpee sauce. Who says shit like that? We put the Slurpee we just got the Slurpee cup and we got like the little plastic thing that you like put on, the little lid. We stuck a straw in there and it was just straight Jack and Coke. So we were like drinking our Jack and Coke Slurpees at this park, scorching hot outside, scorching. We were like covered in sweat. And what ended up happening is my parents live up on the Riviera in Santa Barbara. So the Riviera, as it sounds, is up in the hills. It overlooks the ocean. It's really beautiful. There's mountains on one side. I mean, it's lower mountains. It's the Riviera. Looks like the French Riviera. And it overlooks Santa Barbara. Mountains behind it. So usually on 4th of July, we would go up to this place called Franceschi Park. Popular park in Santa Barbara. And there's another part of it that's like the lower part of Franceschi where my friends and I used to take a lot of mushrooms, acid, uh, yeah, hallucinogens. We go up, we trip up at this place because it's really beautiful and you can see the ocean. And we ditch school and we just trip and hang out up here. It's a really nice place to hang out and take drugs that make things wavy, I guess is the best way to say that. And so what was also cool about that place is just like most towns in the country, you know, they do a annual 4th of July show where there's fireworks. Well, up from this vantage point, up by the lower part of Franceschi Park, it's kind of nestled up in the hills of Santa Barbara. So it's a private spot that you can look out and you can see the ocean, you can see everything below. It's a great place to watch the fireworks if it's clear out that night. So we were drinking all day. We woke up hungover and I got us busted because I just started smoking a cigarette naked. They could smell the cigarette. It spooked her out because she didn't want to get caught. She hadn't lost her job yet. It was like within a few days before she got fired. I'm just trying to put some context into this and why we thought that we might be responsible for the hole in the heart with Nico. So we drank all day. Then we went and we got what's called $2 chuck. Now I didn't know what that was. I was always a heroin addict, you know, smoke crack, shoot heroin, you know, solid shit. And Karina was like a straight up drunk. So she turned me on to a lot of stuff, you know. She's like, she'd always know like the best deals. I didn't even know what Bevmo is. She's like, it's like Costco, but for alcohol. I was like, what? We go there with like shopping carts and just, you know, it looked like leaving Las Vegas shit. She'd be like, oh my God, I want that. And look, that's like special lemon flavored spiced rum. That shit sounds disgusting. Let's drink it and discipline ourselves. Like, what does that mean? She's like, and she would never answer me, but she said stuff like that, very like riddle type stuff. She also introduced me to something called $2 chuck, and there's like this whole like made up backstory with it, like really creative stuff, you know. She's like, yeah, there's this guy named Charles, and Charles was an alcoholic. Charles' wife wasn't okay with him drinking, so he started a alcohol company called like, it's some like Charles Xavier winery. It's like some like pretentious shit like that. But everyone nicknames it $2 Chuck because it's cheap wine. And the whole like mythology behind it is that some guy named Chuck was an alcoholic. He wanted to get wasted. And he'd be like, okay, babe, going to work. And there'd be this like huge assembly line with this like cheap wine. And be like, I need to taste that. It's required for my job. Pound $2 Chuck all day and then like go home to his wife all like shit faced and be like, let's watch pornography. Back when it was like hard to get, it was almost like illegal, you know. I imagine that like Russian guy meets up with another Russian guy at a park and like has a briefcase and they just like kind of sit down, drop the briefcase, act like they don't even know each other and just sitting at the same park bench. And then the other guy that didn't have the briefcase before the guy with the briefcase just picks up the guy's briefcase and walks away, goes home, opens it up, and there's like this like cobweb, like dust festooned little like, you know, rolls of tape that you could watch like on an old 8mm projector. And it's just like that really corny black and white porn with like those women that have like 1920s women's swimmer bodies with like the black cap on. What the fuck am I talking about? Jeez, I did fall off. Sorry. I don't know. I was I was going off on a weird one. $2 Chuck. So we ended up buying some of that $2 Chuck. It's $2 wine. And our whole plan was to go up to the Riviera and just have a romantic night up there. I have a picture of it. I'll make the picture of this particular night the thumbnail for this video. And we went up to this, you know, we had a blanket. I don't even know where would we even get a blanket? We did though. Probably just in my red backpack. That's how fucking homeless I was. I was like, grab the toothbrush, grab my trucker hat, grab the blanket. I feel like having a wild night out. She's like, okay, let's do this. So we ended up going up there and we really did. I wrote her a poem and I read it to her about how much I loved her. And we got along that night. We didn't fight. It was like a very, very loving night. Held each other, watched fireworks. Probably fingered her a couple times. Maybe. Probably. Yeah, that probably happened. And so after it was all over, it's probably like that stuff wraps up around like 10:30, 11 at night. So that park is about 5 minutes from my parents' house. Now, remember, I wasn't allowed there. Now, my mom, for whatever reason, was out of town. I think she was up in Northern California with her family. Oh yeah, her mom had passed away in on June 13th, and I think she was still up there. You know, she has a couple brothers and a sister. I think she was hanging out with her siblings and just kind of processing because she just lost her mom. So my dad had the house to himself. And after the fireworks were over, and after I read her the poem, and after I fingered her, so on, she's like, "Where are we gonna sleep? Oh my god, are we gonna be on the street again?" I was like, "Never that, babe. I'll protect you." She's like, "Oh, your personality's so bomb." I was like, "I know. Let's go." So my whole plan was to break into my parents' house. So I break into my parents' house, and listen, I've mastered this throughout the years. I mean, seriously, and their house is like really, I mean, not to pat myself on the back too much, but like to break into their house, it's like getting into a fucking fortress with a sledgehammer or something. These weird analogies that I make. It's very hard to get in there because they have an alarm system with sensors on the windows. They have motion sensors on the. Did I ever tell you guys the story about when we like left the window open and we were like just living in there because my parents were on vacation when we were homeless, and then Trina's like, I bet because like every time we'd like leave my room, we'd have to crawl military style on the ground to try to like avoid the sensors that were in the corner. And Karina, like, she got all drunk one night. She's like, "This is stupid. Fuck that. I bet that you're so dumb. These sensors don't even work." And she was butt naked, crawling military style because we were trying to watch Catch Me If You Can in the living room. And she just got up, she's like, "Fuck this." And it's like, and like all these lights started like going off everywhere. It was crazy. It's like some cat burglar alarm. It was hardcore. And it's so loud. You know, it sounds like some war siren. It's like, "Rawr, rawr, rawr." The whole like neighborhood woke up, and we're like so drunk. We're like, "Fuck yeah, let's just go to sleep." So we went and passed out while the alarm was going on. We wake up and there were some cops there, and they're like, "What are you guys doing? You guys just break into houses and get butt naked and pass out in other people's beds?" I was like, "Yeah, dude. That's not a picture of me right there. There's like a family photo of me on." I was like, "What the fuck are you? I live here." They look at the picture and they're like, "That guy had acne." I was like, "That's when I was a drug addict." And they're like, "Put your hands behind your back." I got to, it's bad. Anyway, I didn't get arrested though. So anyway, and that was like earlier on in the summer. So that particular night, we decided to break into my parents' house again. I didn't know that my mom was out of town, but she was. So when we go inside, we get inside. It's eerily quiet in there. My dad's like, it's a 2-story house. I think he was upstairs, and like we like snuck into my room, and I'm like, "You know what? Let's just sleep on the side of the bed. We can have sex. We can just sleep here." And even if my dad like comes in, even if I thought my mom was still there. Even if my parents come in there, um, they won't see us. They don't even know we're here. So we went on the side of the bed, and you know, I know it's probably like the correct thing to say that we made love like every time that we had sex, but usually I just fuck her hard and strangle her and pull her hair and stuff like that. But this particular night, it was nothing but love. We went up and we had that romantic night um, up at Franceschi Park. We drank two buck chuck, which I mean, anytime I drink that, I make love. No more fucking when you're under the influence of 2 buck chuck. Fact. And then we were like hiding in this dark room and we made love. It was amazing. It was like Titanic. She was like scratching my back. She's like, "I love you, Jack." I was like, "Who the fuck's Jack?" She's like, "Shut up." And so we had sex, and it was out of love. And then we were laying there naked, and my parents' dog, Brava, yellow lab, comes in and she's just straight busting us. She's like, sniffing and like her tail's wagging, and she comes up and she's like just totally busting us. And you hear my dad like in the distance, he's like, Brava, where are you, girl? And I was like, fucking Korean. Like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And I just put my hand over her mouth. I'm like, shh, shh. My dad came in and I could just hear him. He's like, there's nobody in here, Brava. Come on, girl, let's go to bed. And I'm like sitting there like with my hand over her mouth. I'm like, oh my God, we're busted. And then he just left. We got away with it. And then we found out she was pregnant August 3rd. That's when, on my birthday, it was my 32nd birthday. And we found out that she was pregnant. If you remember the whole story about the strip club and all that. Yeah. I'm a good guy. And so I like to say that Nico was conceived out of love. And if you look at the timeline of when we made love with the $2 chuck, it matches up. So we just like to think that we had sex on 4th of July, and that's when we made our beautiful son. All right, see you guys next time. Palabra. I'm just kidding. I just did that last video too. That's going to get old real quick. So what the fuck was the point of that whole story? Oh, so if that gives you kind of an idea of how we were living during the time that he was conceived, there's a couple different schools of thought on, neonatal deformities. And, if you're under the influence while you conceive the baby, if it actually is going to affect them, because there's fetal alcohol syndrome, which can lead to a whole laundry list of problems for the child. And we're really concerned about that when we first found out she was pregnant. Various physicians that we talked to in Planned Parenthood basically said that we were fine during the first trimester, during the first 6 weeks, that, it was still feeding from the embryo, from like the protective protein coating around the egg. But then when we found out that there was a hole in the heart, it really made us feel guilty, because we thought that maybe that was our fault for doing drugs and alcohol and living the kind of lifestyle that we were living, even though she had stopped right when she found out she was pregnant. So the reason I said all that is that was a major catalyst for a lot of the stress. Now, I don't know if I ever told you guys, but that summer I started a novel collaboration with my absolute favorite novelist. His name is Tony O'Neill. He wrote a book called Sick City. It's an amazing book. It's about these two dope fiends in LA that get a hold of a sex tape from Sharon Tate, the woman that was killed in the Manson murders. She was married to that fucking chomo, Roman Polanski. I can't believe people in Hollywood back that dude. How can you back up a pedophile, dude? It's like, well, he's very talented. Have you seen Chinatown? Yeah, I've seen Chinatown's a good movie. Have you seen Rosemary's Baby? Yeah. It's cool. It's a little outdated, but yeah. Well, if you've seen those and you like them, how could he be a weirdo? Like, what do you mean? I like Michael Jackson's music. That guy is a straight up fucking creep. I can't even listen to it now. Every time I listen to it, I feel like a weirdo. I feel like I'm supporting it. Like before we knew that, we're like, man, this shit is fucking a bomb. And then we found out like what he was really doing. We're like, oh my, I mean, I'd imagine it's like R. Kelly. Like, how can you ever listen to I Believe You Can Fly, that song, and like not think about him being a serial fucking piece of shit? Or Bill Cosby. I can't even eat Jello now. When I eat Jello, I feel like I'm getting assaulted somehow. That gelatin. Fucking disgusting. Oh yeah, so Roman Polanski. But so anyway, Tony O'Neill, he's like my favorite writer, for sure. Favorite living novelist. He's the shit. If you're going to read one book by him, I recommend Sick City. It's amazing. These two dope fiends get a hold of that Sharon Tate sex tape, and it's a group sex tape where she's getting like eaten out by Mama Cass from Mama and the Papas and all these other 60s luminaries. And these two dope fiends get a hold of this like tape, and they're running around LA trying to sell it for $1 million. It's an amazing book. Slash from Guns N' Roses gave it an endorsement on the cover. Irvine Welsh, who wrote Train Spotting, gave it an endorsement. It's the shit. It's the shit. So I had written Tony a fan letter. He was the first person that I ever wrote a fan letter to, and gave him a copy of Wasting Talent before it was published. And I gave it to him, and I did that with like a lot of writers. You know, I'd send it to people, and they'd never write me back. I'd be like, "Oh, I must be a bitch." Okay, thanks, man. Thanks, brother. Fuck it. I'll just quit writing now. But Tony O'Neill wrote me back, and he loved it, and he gave me like really, really, really encouraging words about it. And Tony was like my favorite writer, and I was like, "Whoa, my god, you know, he's the shit." You know, he's a writer's writer, like a bunch of one of the biggest writers in the world is adapting Six City right now into a television show, and it's he's just the shit. So he and I, you know, he gave me compliments. He gave me a blurb for my first book, for Wasting Talent, and him and I, stayed in close contact after all that. He would write me all the time, and we just became friends. You know, he's a great guy. He was in the Brian Jonestown Massacre, the band. He was the keyboardist for that band. He's the shit. Tony is the fucking man. I love him. I fucking love him. That's how I sounded. I fucking love that guy. That guy's fucking awesome. He's an awesome writer. If I talk like that, oh my God. And so when I got out of prison the second time from Lompoc, him and I started talking. And I said, "Hey, would you ever want to collaborate on a book with me?" And he's like, he's really nice. And he's always been a fan of my work. And I've always been a fan. We have like a mutual respect for each other. And he's like, "Well, I got a book that I was working on. I got about halfway through and I gave up on. If you can like make some sort of cohesive story and write the second half, I'd be happy to collaborate with you on it." So I read it, and it was amazing. It was about cartels in Mexico. And I came up with this character named Gunner, who was he was a convict that was impotent, couldn't get his dick hard. You know, his whole life his dick didn't work. Could you imagine that? Jeez. And he went to well, not his whole life. He was an Iraq war veteran, and he was addicted to meth. This is all a made up story, by the way. He's addicted to meth, and he went to a bomb, he was in like barracks. You know, he's in a military base in Iraq, and it got bombed while he was smoking meth. And he'd been up for like 4 days, and he's just like hitting the pookie on a candle in this, in this like military bunker base or whatever. It gets bombed, and because he's up smoking meth in the corner, he's the only person that doesn't die. The roof implodes, and like everybody dies but him. So he's twacked out in this pitch black military base, and all he has is his lighter. And so he's he's already been up for a few days, tripping, doesn't know what's real and what's not. And he's looking around the darkness, and he's just like seeing all of his dead homies with like, strapinol? God, why do I fucking forget words? You know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, he has like all these dead friends, and it fucks him up. He gets all weird, and his name's Gunner because he's like an elite military sniper. He ends up going to prison after that because he comes back from the war with all this PTSD, and he goes impotent after the war. He can't get his dick up anymore. His PTSD is too bad. Can't get a boner. While he's in prison, he kills somebody, like in a riot. As soon as he kills the person, he gets a boner. He's a weirdo. Oh yeah, he's a weirdo. It's based on a true story. No, it's not. I just made this up. And so he realizes that the only way he can get his dick hard is by getting a boner. I mean, the only way he can get his dick hard is by getting a boner. Dude, I have a cure for your boner problems. Just get a boner. Oh, okay, cool. No more dick problems. No, the only way that he can get a boner is by killing somebody. So he becomes a serial killer, and he starts killing people, and he goes down to Mexico because he can like kill prostitutes down there without getting in trouble. So he like will be like, "Hey, let's have a threesome." He'll kill one of them, and then he'll fuck the other one in front of them. It's very morbid. But anyway, Tony's story was about a old DEA agent that got fired because he became a heroin addict because, like, you know, like he'd go undercover being a junkie, and then he got addicted to heroin. So he was like some disgraced DEA agent, and he was down in Mexico just drinking himself to death. And he gets involved with some crazy cartel thing down there where like they're trying to kill him and trying to like hide stuff in his body. You know, they like put people on ice and cut them open and put drugs inside their stomach. And then my idea, so I took his story with the ex-DE agent, and then I brought my character Gunner, the guy that could only get his dick hard if he killed people. And we're going to call the book Anti-Heroes, Juarez, just to take place in Juarez, Mexico. And it was going to be a whole series. And I wrote it all summer. I don't know if I ever told you guys about that, but I was writing this book Anti-Heroes all fucking summer. Karina and I would get drunk at you know, like at a park, and I'd be writing stuff. I'd be like, babe, check out this scene I just wrote about this dead hooker that this guy kills. She's like, how can you kill a hooker that's already dead? I'm like, that's not what I meant to say. What I meant to say is check out this scene about this serial killer that kills a hooker so that he can get a boner. And she's like, that shit sounds so fucking bomb. I was like, it is bomb. Check it out. And actually, it came out really good. This is not published. And so I'm telling you all this because this all leads up to what the fuck the point of the story is. So the hole in the heart with Nico, that's one source of contention. It's a source of stress for me. Karina and I's relationship is tumultuous at best because of the shady shit that she was doing to me before she got sober. My probation officer, Josh, hated me. My therapist thought that I was a straight sex offender because I'd be like, yeah, and then cum spews out of her nose like walrus tusks. And I was like, is this too graphic for you? And she's like, oh, no. I'm writing. She gets out some Purell, washes her hand with hand sanitizer. It's like, yeah, have a good day. Like all creeped out. No matter what I said to this bitch, she would go and tell my PO that I was bad. Oh, he's doing bad. I could literally go to a session with her and be like, no, you're right. I am a scumbag. No, you're right. Should I keep a dream journal? Would that make me less of a piece of shit? She's like, yeah. Oh, yeah. A dream journal. Yeah, good. How'd I do? Oh, you're really doing good. Great. And then I told you, and then I'd go to my PO and he'd be like, she said that you're terrible, that you're a piece of shit and you won't admit it. I was like, what, Josh? I am a piece of shit. I am. He'd be like, you are being defiant. Whatever, dude. So I had that going on. I'm getting drug tested once a week. And then on top of all that, of all these different stress factors, I got the looming prison case. You know, I'm going back to prison for the pimping and pandering thing. Then I get the film deal. So I have some good stuff going on. And now I'm not homeless anymore. Now I'm renting a room at Jeff's place. So I told you that I wanted to have Paul involved with editing some of the documentary. You know, let him do some montages, give him some responsibilities. He did have a cognitive decline because of the dust off stuff. And it was really, really hard when you care about somebody. You can watch somebody wither away with meth, heroin, crack, coke, whatever it is, pills, and it sucks. But you know that it's temporary. When it comes to brain damage, that's something that, you know, you have optimism. You think that they can get better, but deep down, you know that figuratively you've lost them. And that's kind of where he was. We were losing him. You know, he just wasn't the same as he used to be. So because he's one of my best friends, I was trying to get him involved with the documentary, especially because we always had dreams and aspirations of being like, you know, counterculture filmmakers, writers, whatever. And it was hard communicating with him. You know, I'd have to explain things to him multiple times. And I was on the phone, you know, for multiple, for all day, every day, pretty much. You know, I would just like pace around in my little Nike SB slides without my shirt on, hot tan, all that shit. And just talk to like, you know, Jim, Zach, all these different characters that I was talking to at the time, trying to get this movie going. And Paul would be like, so what do you want me to do? I'm like, look, Paul, all I want you to do is edit montages. And he would be like, okay, for sure. Then he'd call me like frantic in the moment. I'd be like, dude, I don't remember what you want me to do. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't know I know that you want me to do something for the doc, but I don't know what. I'm like, Paul, editing montages. He's like, oh yeah, right. And then like the next morning I wake up to text messages. He'd be like, hey bro, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? I'm not really sure what you want. I'm like, oh, I want to give you footage. I want you to throw it together in a montage, put it together, a bunch of different images, clips, whatever, unified by one theme and, with music as the backdrop or something. Okay. And then he called me like a few hours later and asked me the same thing. So it was like really sad and frustrating. My mom deals with Alzheimer's, the early stages of it. So I watched similar stuff with her. But, he was like maybe 35 years old at the time. It was really, really sad to see someone you care about deteriorating like that. But I still wanted him to be involved. So what had happened is Zach had reached out to him because I told Zach, I said, listen, I need you to deal with Paul. And I explained the situation. I said, he's one of my best friends. He's having cognitive issues right now. I need you to be patient with him as I am with him. I was always very empathetic towards the situation. And so Zach had called Paul, and Paul basically said, yeah, Ryan keeps telling me about the project and I just don't know whether to believe him. Ryan bullshits a lot. He exaggerates. He's a manipulator. Basically not realizing that he's saying stuff that could get me fucked with Zach. Like, this is one of my best friends who I talk very highly about, and he's basically like saying bad stuff about me. Now, I'm sure you've already noticed about me just how I conduct the channel. Like, I promise the world and I try really hard to deliver on what I say, but I fall short a lot. People on Patreon tell me that sometimes. They're like, hey, why don't you just not promise stuff and just do stuff without saying that you're going to do stuff? And like, then no one would get mad at you. I've had that problem my whole life. I've always like wanted to make people happy, and so I guess I promise things sometimes, even if I have the intention to follow through with what I'm saying. Sometimes I don't. And that's what he was saying in a nutshell. Like, well, Ryan exaggerates and he's dishonest sometimes and he makes promises he can't keep, shit like that. But the way that it was interpreted by Zach was what I said. I'm a liar, manipulator, and a bitch. I was like, whoa. So when Zach told me all that stuff, I got really, really mad. And I called Zach or I called Paul and I was like, what the fuck, dude? Are you serious? Like, I'm getting an opportunity to make a real movie, something we've dreamed about for years. And you're smutting me up, dude? Like, aren't we supposed to be brothers? What the fuck is wrong with you? And he was very sincerely apologetic. I can look back at this whole thing in retrospect. I know he didn't mean harm, but he caused some, or maybe that was my own like ego making like false interpretations about it. I'm healthy enough now where I can look back and like see where I'm in the wrong. And in this instance, I definitely was. So his girl called me, who's a really, really close friend of mine to this day. She texts me today and she texts me today, like the sweetest messages. She's like, hey Ryan, like, you're doing a lot of really cool stuff right now. I'm really happy for everything that you have going on. Paul would be so happy if he could see it. And so I'm glad that, she's like family to me. So she called me and she's like, Paul's really upset. You're upsetting him. Because I basically had told Paul, like, fuck you, dude. Like, you're trying to screw me over. Fuck you. So all that patience and all that stuff that I just said, like, completely went out the window when he said something that could be used against me with Zach. So Paul's girl called to try to like smooth it over. And I basically said, you know what? Fuck Paul. I went out of my way to try to help him out when I don't need to. I do not need to include Paul in this. And he shits on me. Fuck him. Tell him to lose my number. And I just blocked him. And that was that. A friendship that, is like at that point, maybe like a 12 or 13-year friendship, just bye. Fuck you. And that was the first of many, many situations like this. And this is like part of how the whole breakdown storm started brewing. So Paul was the first casualty of that. I blocked him. I basically said, fuck you. And he was very, 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 very hurt by it. His girl would text me and be like, that, don't do that to him. He didn't know better. He didn't mean to fuck you over in any way. He just didn't realize like what he was saying could be used against you. And I'm like, how could he not realize that? Fuck that. But if you think about it from a rational standpoint in hindsight, I can totally see he just didn't really understand that saying that I exaggerate or that I lie about stuff could hurt me in any way. And like the kind of things that he's saying that I'd lie about are like, let me give you like an example. He would call me and be like, hey, can you lend me $40? And I'd be like, yeah, for sure. And then like I wouldn't have it a week later when he needed it or whatever. And I'd be like, hey, I didn't get the money, so I can't give it to you yet. Or like, you got to keep waiting or I can't do it. And to him, that'd be like, you're lying. Oh, you have the money. You just don't want to give it to me. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, why'd you tell me you could do it then? And yes, that's my fault. I shouldn't say I can do stuff if I can't do it. Definitely a flaw of mine. Has good intentions, but I shouldn't do stuff like that. So that was like the first falling out that we had. Tony O'Neill, because he was part of the Brian Jonestown Massacre, which is an amazing band. So Tony's like the kind of guy, he's like that cool like manager at like an old vinyl record store that knows like all the obscure underground like rock bands and hip hop and like EDM and like all like the shit that's like super obscure. Knows about all like the artsy movies. We wrote a screenplay together too this recently last summer. Whole different project that we collaborate on. We're really on really good terms. He's about to come out with a new novel. I'm really excited to read it. He's in the shit. Tony O'Neill, check him out on Amazon. He's a fucking badass writer. That's definitely like a writer I try to be more like, it's like who I look up to. But Tony, because of his obscure taste, because he was in Brian Jonestown Massacre, which is a lot of the music in the documentary. I think I put out a couple sizzles where we use some of their songs, but because he was in the band and because he had such a good taste in music, I decided to make him a music supervisor. So, he's like, well, yeah, how much money can you pay me? I'm like 10 grand. And he was like, man, that would really help me right now. I was like, no problem. I got you. And I asked Zach, I said, hey, can you pay Tony this $10,000? And Zach said, that's no problem. Cool. Perfect. So around this time, Santos started telling me about different celebrities that were fans of my work, that we could get an interview from. Sasha Grey, the porn star, Mark Boone Jr. from Sons of Anarchy played Bobby on Sons of Anarchy. Chris Hanley, producer American Psycho. I think we were getting Chad Muska, pro skateboarder. He was living next door to Santos at the time. We were going to get Muska. And so like one of our whole things behind all that was that we had all this crazy footage of me smoking crack, guns, fights, toxic relationships. But what we didn't was have a lot of like famous people that we could interview, because a lot of times when you watch documentaries, the good documentaries have like, multiple people that are giving sound bites and giving little interviews that go together to make like the narrative quilt of the documentary. And usually they like pick like 3 or 4 central people that are articulate, that can carry the film, the best people being interviewed. Definitely helps if you have famous people. Like, so now I've been around longer. I know bigger name people, but like those were in not anything against those people, but those were the people that I had access to at that time. Sasha Grey, the porn star, Mark Boone Jr. Had I met Nick yet? Have we talked about Nick? I don't remember. But I'm about to meet Nick Stahl very soon, into like where we're at right now in this part of the story. So, we'd have interviews by Jim Oles, by Santos, by Sasha Grey, Chad Muska, Mark Boone Jr. These are the people that we wanted to get the interviews with, that we had access to. So we started forming all that stuff, and we started planning different shoots that we were going to have, to facilitate this, because we'd have to get a director of photography. We'd have to get an audio engineer, to do a high quality shoot which is what we did for the whole documentary. For the interviews, it's multifaceted. You know, there's different people in charge of different parts of it. So we started actually getting shoots together with all this stuff. And I just had that falling out with Paul. And now Tony O'Neill was asking me if I could send him the money for the music supervisor part. And Zach had already cleared it and said that he could. Now we had probably, I think at this point we had about $30,000 in the bank to spend, I want to say, between Zach, Max, different people. And one of the first things that I wanted to spend the money on was to get those, you know, celebrity interviews out of the way, because I thought that it would give credibility to the documentary if there were people that you recognize, you know, talking about my work and talking about me. People that I hadn't even met at that point. I'd met Muska. I hadn't met Mark Boone Jr. Hadn't met Sasha Grey, I don't think. And so that's what our plan was to get money together to facilitate these shoots. So we'd already done the initial shoots up in Santa Barbara. And we also had footage that was like gold, but it was on old cell phones that we had to pay to get, you know, to extract the data from. And it was expensive. We used like military grade technology to get data out of like broken phones, water damaged phones that were cracked and inoperable. We had to send those away to companies that specialize in extracting data. And that was pricey. It's like $1,500, sometimes $3,000, depending on how damaged the phone was. This is the kind of stuff that we started to do. Now, around this time, my ego started just completely going out of control. I think that a testament to that is how I reacted with Paul. You know, Paul's one of my best friends, and instead of having his back, I just kind of like went with Zach, who I just met, but he was like helping me out financially, and he was helping me facilitate the documentary. And I got blinded by the fact that Paul had always been there for me. You know, he had written me when I was in the hole. When I was in solitary confinement in prison. That's the person that wrote me. Zach never did that. I just met Zach, but he paid my rent and he was helping me get my documentary going. My loyalty should have been extended to Paul, and that's how I normally would be. You know, I'm a very loyal person. I'm loyal to a fault for sure. But I was just starting to be in like a manic episode. I think it was just all these outside factors with stress. And what ended up happening is there was a number of things that we wanted to shoot. There were the celebrity interviews, and then also a new book had just come out by a company called Gutter Books. They had made a short story anthology called Just to Watch Him Die, crime fiction inspired by Johnny Cash. And it was like a collection of different short stories by crime writers. I guess you could consider me a crime writer. I'm more of like a junkie writer, I guess. I mean, there's not like longevity in that, you know? I mean, you can only put like a couple books out about drugs, and then people are like, okay, let's get on to something more interesting than just drugs, which someday I will do. My first two books, though, are pretty drugged out. So there were a bunch of writers in that book that I guess, you know, I don't know, about the same level as me. Maybe if some people bigger, some people below me as far as like what following was at the time. Wasting Talent was still a relatively cult book. Even though I started to get these press articles written about me, those hadn't come out yet. So I hadn't built the following. It started peaking right around this time, but it hadn't happened yet. So this book, this Johnny Cash book, was coming out, and I wrote my story, Folsom Prison Blues. So we had to pick a song that was inspired by Johnny Cash, pick a Johnny Cash song, and then write a short story kind of influenced by that song. So I picked Folsom Prison Blues, and I wrote the short story, the one about those guys smuggling heroin into prisons in contact visits with balloons, and then somebody cut their stomach open and took the balloons out. And I wrote that was at Lompoc, and now is being published right around the time that we were going into production for the documentary. So we wanted to, like, there were tour dates. I was supposed to do one in New York. My PO wouldn't let me travel to New York. Even though it was work related, he wouldn't let me go. And so there was a reading coming up in LA. Now, readings I've talked about before. It's just like music, you know. Pretty much like when bands go to bars and play venues or whatever, there's a bill, and the people that are headlining name is bigger, and then there's like supporting acts that open for them. So there was a reading in LA, and I was supposed to be the headlining writer, and then there was a few other writers that were going to be on there with me. And right when I got there is probably right when I started really exhibiting signs of the breakdown. And we will get into that in the next video. I'm scattering these stories out so that, you know, I can really contextualize my third prison term. And, you know, people are like, well, just get to it anyway. Like I've said, just watch the videos when we get to the third prison term. I'll be putting them on there. They'll be up first on Patreon, but I will put them on YouTube as well. I appreciate your support. We'll start getting into like the really crazy breakdown stuff soon, or it's about to get kind of weird when I start having like a full blown psychotic meltdown and thinking that the FBI and military are after me and there's helicopters chasing me. My PO's trying to kill me with biological warfare. I'm trying to get taken out by different groups, and I call the FBI trying to get them to protect me from my PO. Just a bunch of crazy shit's about to happen, and then I go to prison. So look forward to getting into all that. Check out Cameo. That goes to charity. Cameo.com/RyanLeone85 and Patreon.com/RyanLeone. Like, comment, subscribe, share, do whatever you got to do. Talk shit, even if you want. I'm starting to answer a few shitty comments now and positive ones. I'll answer some of those as well. All right, guys. See you next time. Stay safe. Palabra.